Thank you very much, Ricky, and thank you to everyone for joining us, especially my colleague and good friend, Congressman Charlie Crist, Florida's former governor, and Michelle Evermore from the National Employment Law Project. This is a critical time. We are in a public health emergency, but this is also an economic emergency. And one of the most critical forms of emergency assistance that the Congress has provided through the CARES Act is the unemployment insurance to race back into the pockets of our neighbors all across the state of Florida. We're hitting some roadblocks, however, and we need to push through these roadblocks at the state level, or else here's an overarching point I want everyone to take home. This matters. Unemployment insurance matters to everyone across the state of Florida. Our entire economy will recover at a faster rate if we have those dollars circulating throughout the economy. So any roadblock that Governor DeSantis and the state of Florida puts in the way is a roadblock to our economic recovery eventually. But more front burner is this is the lifeline for our neighbors to survive, to be able to put food on their tables, maybe pay a few bills, take care of their kids, take care of their parents, and we simply have to act as if it is an emergency. That means Governor DeSantis needs to exercise his emergency powers right away to lift the cap on the $275 a week benefit. Florida is the lowest in the country. He needs to act now using his emergency powers to lengthen the number of weeks. Florida is the stingiest, I believe, tied with North Carolina on the 12-week limitation. Governor DeSantis has already exercised his emergency powers under the unemployment insurance statute to waive the requirement that you have to apply to 5 jobs and that you have a 1-week waiting period. So what is stopping him now from lifting that cap on the amount of money that will go to unemployed workers? And what is stopping him from lengthening the number of weeks? This is an extraordinary time. It's a public health emergency, an economic emergency, and that requires him to use his emergency powers on behalf of our neighbors and on behalf of this great state. I'm gratified that Congressman Crist is on the line with us because as governor of Florida, he understood this and exercised emergency powers himself. So there is no better source for how this works and the importance of serving all Floridians than Charlie Crist. So Congressman Crist, Governor, thank you very much for being on the line. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Kathy, thank you so much. And what a wonderful partner I have here in Tampa Bay with Representative Kathy Castor. She's absolutely amazing, and I love her to death. This is a crisis that has left an unprecedented number of Floridians out of work. The federal government has stepped up to provide significant unemployment benefits to the tune of $600 a week for 16 weeks. But this is a great opportunity for Florida to improve the amount they provide from the state unemployment system. $275 is among the nation's lowest benefits offered for unemployment. I can think of no better time or reason than right now to bring it in line with the rest of the country. As a former governor who faced down the Great Recession, as well as the BP oil spill, tremendous economic catastrophe, and the worst environmental catastrophe in the history of our nation, I have empathy for Governor DeSantis' situation. I've been in those shoes myself. And it's not easy. He's dealing with matters of life and death every day. And, people have described it as though we're building the plane as it's flying. And there's a lot of truth to that. And I can relate to it because we dealt with a similar situation, just in a different way, where this is obviously more health related. But as Kathy said, as Representative Castor said, it's an economic catastrophe as well. We're offering this suggestion as a way to quickly and easily reduce the strain on our out-of-work Floridians by using the powers the governor currently possesses to increase Florida's unemployment benefit. In fact, governors in Georgia and Michigan, which have similar authorities, have already taken this action. And Governor DeSantis has used these emergency powers and authority already to waive the requirement that people have to seek out 5 employers before receiving their benefit, as the representative already told us. That was exactly the right call, and we're asking him to please make that move again to raise the cap on the state's unemployment benefit. These people need this money. It is a dire situation. Getting by on $275 from the state and $600 from the feds is simply not enough for most every family. And as was stated in the book of Matthew, we are in the Holy Week, as you all are aware. Passover begins today. And so it seems to me that now of all times, we must do what was said in Matthew. And Jesus said, his quote, "What you do among the least among us, you are doing to me." And I think that the governor and those in his office and this administration need to understand the importance of this and how it affects real people in their real lives. You know, something I always try to adhere to is the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto you. Well, I can assure you that the Floridians that are out of work need something very good done unto them. And I appeal and implore Governor DeSantis to exercise the right that he has to do just that, to do unto others as anyone would have done unto them. And with that, I'll turn it back over to my friend, Kathy Castor.
Well, thank you, Congressman Crist. You are a faithful public servant, and you always have been with, and I know your heart is with your neighbors as well, obviously it is. So Michelle Evermore is with us. She is a nationally renowned expert on the unemployment insurance system. She can answer some of the questions, but Michelle, would you detail what you see here in Florida compared to other states, and what's going on across the country? Why is Florida so behind when it comes to providing that emergency assistance to our neighbors?
Thank you for that question, Representative Cantor, and thanks also to Representative Crist for the opportunity to discuss Florida's uniquely unfair, stingy, and exclusionary unemployment insurance system. So in 2011 and 2012, the previous governor and legislature rammed through some of the most punishing rules in the United States. This system was actively designed to discourage workers from applying for benefits and were made to navigate a labyrinthine application process designed to fail workers. So as a result, in the first quarter of last year, only 8.3% of unemployed workers in Florida were able to receive a benefit, the worst in the United States for that quarter. And the annual rate of around 10% is among the bottom 2 states. This is stunningly irresponsible. Around 49% of workers exhausted benefits before finding unemployment, also among the worst rates in the United States. Compare that to 2007, where recipiency was at 30%. This is a system that worked well under Governor Crist. Unfavorable audits of Florida's Connect system are nothing new. This system has failed audits since it was launched in 2013. Also, due to the underlying system's hideous record, NELT filed a formal complaint against the state system to the Department of Labor, and the DOL's Civil Rights Division agreed that the system needed serious reform, finding that this system is uniquely inaccessible to non-English speakers, people of color, and people with disabilities. To date, this system is still inaccessible and discriminatory. I want to reiterate that in the past few weeks, in response to the COVID crisis, Governor Kemp in Georgia and Governor Whitmer in Michigan signed executive orders restoring states to 26 weeks of duration and improving their systems. And again, past disaster declarations in Florida have waived requirements of the state's new law. 227,000 Floridians filed new claims just last week. Every dollar paid out in unemployment insurance at the height of the last recession resulted in $1.61 in local economic activity. Unemployed Floridians deserve better in normal times, but in these extraordinary times, immediate action is needed as a matter of public safety. So I thank Representative Crist and Representative Cantor's call to increase benefits duration and improve access to this program right now.
Great, thank you, Michelle. Ricky, I think we can open it up to questions.
Wonderful. So before we get started with questions, let me just remind everyone, if you have a question, please put it into the chat function. And if you would like to go live, either on video or via phone, let us know that. Please include your name and your publication. So first, we're going to go to Evan Donovan from WFLA. Evan, you are unmuted.
Hi, Evan.
Evan, are you there?
Evan, you may need to unmute your phone.
All right, I will remute Evan and we can get back to him. Up next, we have Lawrence Mower with the Tampa Bay
Oh,
Times.
there's Evan. All right.
All right, so up next, we have Lawrence Mower with the Tampa Bay Times and Miami Herald in Tallahassee. Lawrence, you are now unmuted.
Hey, thanks. This is for former Governor Christ. There's obviously been a lot of problems with the website, the unemployment website. And while there's been a lot of blame to go around, the selection of the company, Deloitte Consulting, to carry out this contract was done under your administration, admittedly late in your administration. What did you know about that contract, and what do you make of it now?
Well, what I make of it now is the fact that we need to change it and get it right and make sure that this works more efficiently and effectively for the people who are trying to get in. I'm sending a letter to the governor recommending to have a reputable tech company build an app that allows people to apply to their apply on their mobile device rather. And I think that would make things much simpler and much better. And I hope that he will take the advice and do just that. You know, during exigent times that we're facing like this, you want to have every line of communication as open as humanly possible. And so if you're having a system that's crashing and making it very difficult for people in a dire circumstance to get the needed services that they have to have, every option should be on the table. And I think a company that can build an app that makes it easier and more accessible is exactly what we need to do now.
Great. All right, so it looks like Evan is back on the line now, so let's turn it back over to him. Give me one moment. All right, Evan, you are now unmuted if you'd like to ask your question. Evan, are you there? All right, it looks like we might still be having trouble with Evan. So next, we will go to Mitch Perry. Give me one moment, and we will allow Mitch from Bay News 9 to ask his question.
Myself. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Representatives Castor and Christ, Governor DeSantis has been asked about this for, I think, almost every day for the last week, maybe even longer. He has resisted so far to expanding the number of weeks or the benefit itself. Obviously, you're still pushing him today to do that. Why do you think he's resisted so far to this?
Well, you know, I had a conversation with the Secretary of the Department of Economic Opportunity, and their position was that they did not have the authority to change the weekly benefit amount or extend the number of weeks. They said, oh, that's in statute, and we don't have the authority to do that. They're wrong. That's incorrect. They've already used their emergency authorities to make certain waivers on the applying to 5 employers and a 1-week waiting period. There's no difference really in going and extending your emergency authority to tackle the benefit and extending the number of weeks. This is a crisis. It is an emergency. That's why the emergency authorities are there. And as I stated before, this matters to everyone, whether you've lost your job, you've been furloughed, you're suffering in your small business, because we will be less able to bounce back from this economic emergency because we won't have those dollars circulating in our economy. Why put Florida at a distinct disadvantage compared to other states? It doesn't make any sense.
I couldn't agree more with Kathy, Mitch, Representative Castor, forgive me. And I think that it's pretty obvious, as she accurately points out, the governor's already exercised this opportunity in another field, in another area. This exemption is carved out exactly for times like these. When we're in a crisis, we're in a state of emergency. It's a dire situation, as we have discussed before. I faced the same thing myself as governor between 2007 and 2011 and exercised it successfully, at least to some degree. And so I think the opportunity is there. Their interpretation is dead wrong. And the best thing and the right thing to do is to go ahead and exercise that authority that the governor's office has and do what's right for the people. I mean, this is not about right versus left. This is about right versus wrong. And the right thing to do is to help our fellow Floridians who need help the most right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mitch. So now we have a question from Samantha Jo Roth with Spectrum and Bay News 9. Samantha Jo, you are live.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi there, representatives. My question is, so we know that the federal government has added an additional $600 to those unemployment benefits in addition to what Florida is already providing. What specific number would you like to see it increase to? I think right now it would be about $875 if you combine those two at the cap of what Florida's providing. What would be a better number than that? Because $875 for some people sounds pretty good.
Well, they ought to look at least at the national average, and I bet Michelle could weigh in on the national average currently. And remember, this is an extraordinary crisis where it's not just impacting a segment of the economy; it's impacting everyone. So I think Florida needs to be as generous as they possibly can be at this point. But Michelle, could you get into kind of the differences between states and how where Florida ranks in all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. The national average weekly benefit amount is around $366. But in Florida, that amount is, as of the last quarter I checked, only $251.79. That only replaces around 40% of income. This additional $600 is going to trigger off at the end of July, and Floridians will be stuck with these low benefits for the duration of a potentially lengthy recession unless the $600 is extended somehow. So it's not necessarily that benefits need to be, the $600 is a really incredible thing right now, but Florida's system needs to be fixed for the long haul.
And Charlie, do you want to answer that too?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I agree with both of you, obviously. I mean, this is right and just and must be done. And the fact that, Floridians suffer because we're providing such a low amount at the state level, at least. I mean, thank God, that Representative Castor and I had the opportunity in the CARES Act to up the bar an additional $600, but that's still insufficient. And as we've all spoken already, the governor's office, the governor has the opportunity to increase it, to have empathy, to have and show compassion to our fellow Floridians who need the help the most. I mean, those who have lost their jobs over this crisis are in a desperate situation, and they deserve and need and want help, and it should be provided to them, particularly in Holy Week.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Up next, we have Gary from Politico. Gary, you are live.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I do want to roll back the tape a little bit with former Governor Christ, now Representative Christ. You have the same chief of staff for Governor DeSantis, who was your chief of staff. And as you noted earlier, but didn't go into great detail, you issued 2 executive orders in which you extended temporary benefits to unemployment that were authorized by Congress, even after the legislature had refused to endorse that move. I'm sure that did you get advice at that point in time that maybe you would be sued and that you would do it, but you should do it anyway? And was Shane Strum involved in those conversations and is aware of those conversations?
On the last point, I'm not sure. He was my last chief of staff, Gary, and the time frame of that precisely, I'd have to look up and review in all candor. However, yeah, I was pretty sure that if I tried to do that as governor, you can go ahead and extend those additional benefits, there was the possibility and maybe even probability of a suit against me for doing so. But I understood what the statute said. I had been attorney general right before I became governor. And so I was used to getting sued as attorney general a lot. Almost on a daily basis. And so, that's some of the things that you deal with as a leader, and you have to have the courage and the strength and know what's right and be driven by what's right and what is legal. And it's legal in this case for the governor to do precisely what I did and go ahead and extend additional benefits to the people in a time of need. That's where we are. That's what we're talking about. And I don't offer this, frankly, as criticism. I have been reluctant to criticize Governor DeSantis, and I'm not offering this as criticism. I'm offering it as friendly encouragement. For somebody, who has been governor, I can empathize with where the governor is right now. These decisions are not easy, but it's pretty crystal clear to me what is right and what is just. And what's right and what is just in this situation is to extend greater benefits to help our people in a time of need. It's all about health, safety, and welfare. And here we are at ground zero of providing that to the people of the state. It would be wrong not to do so. I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you so much. Next, we will head to Craig Patrick from Fox 13. Craig, you are now unmuted.
Thank you very much. I have a question for Representative Castor, Representative Christ. We're hearing from a growing number of viewers who say they're part-time workers, they're gig workers. When they finally do get into the state system, they cannot proceed. There's a roadblock because under the state program, they are ineligible for state benefits, and as such, they can't move forward to get into the system to tap into extended federal benefits. With that in mind, there is at least some confusion here. What can part-time and seasonal and gig workers do to tap into those extended federal benefits?
Well, I share their frustration, and that is correct. The state system did not provide for that. So they're going to have to retool their website and their entire unemployment system. Through the CARES Act, we've provided robust dollars to direct them to do that so they can expand it. And Michelle she can go back and compare. This is entirely new. And I had asked her before the call how states were doing updating their websites and their unemployment systems to capture the self-employed, the gig workers, and contract employees. So Michelle, can you expand upon that a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. So states needed to wait for guidance from the Federal Employment and Training Administration, who issued guidance in record time. Sunday night at 9 o'clock, guidance came down to states about how they could administer these new pandemic unemployment assistance benefits, and there will be administrative funding following that guidance. And so now states do have to reprogram their computers, and it will take time, even in states with upgraded with the top of the line unemployment insurance system. So it's probably going to be a challenge in Florida to upgrade the system and get it and create a way for people to start applying. In some states, however, I would note that their unemployment insurance agencies are encouraging people to at least submit their applications, and the agency is holding it until it understands fully how the pandemic unemployment assistance benefits need to play out. And they will be issuing, some states will be issuing checks for the pandemic unemployment assistance benefits within a few weeks.
And Charlie, you want to add on to that?
Sure. Craig, thanks for the question. I simply would associate myself with the comments of Representative Castor and Michelle. I think they put it succinctly and well, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, so we're going to head back to Evan Donovan. I believe he has his feature figured out. Evan, are you there?
Let's hope so. Can everybody hear me?
Hi, Evan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay, finally. Sorry about that, guys. So I have two questions. The first one is, it's obvious that Florida's unemployment benefits are pretty paltry, but isn't that secondary to the problem right here? Like, no one can get into the system. It's completely overwhelmed. I appreciate the gesture. I'm sure a lot of unemployed people do what you're trying to do here, but how do we fix that problem first? And isn't that the most important?
Yeah, they are not mutually exclusive whatsoever. That's why, as part of the CARES Act, we've provided additional monies to the state to ramp that up. To the governor's credit, he's hiring folks, he's pulling other state workers to get on board. But there had been a warning when he came into office that this unemployment system was totally inadequate. They should have acted in a swifter fashion, just to make it functional for what happens every day before this emergency. But look, it's an all hands on deck moment. A public health crisis and an economic crisis, and it's to everyone's benefit across the state of Florida if we can get this up and running as soon as possible, get those dollars back into the pockets of people who have lost their jobs, and get them circulating throughout the broader economy. Charlie?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. And Evan, thank you very much. I think, our letter about asking the governor to build an app to allow for mobile access, for example, like a company like Google, if you will. Paper can be dangerous in a situation like this. I mean, there apparently are lines in Hialeah on the news already. So we have sent this letter. We'll share it with you. We've sent it this morning, and hopefully that will be of helpful advice to the governor.
Yeah, can you believe it? They've started printing the paper applications. Here, State Senator Janet Cruz has advised me that she has those paper applications available outside her office door, and that's going to be an answer for some people, but it's not an answer for the bulk of Floridians who have to rely on a functional unemployment system, especially at a time of such an emergency.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you both. And I think my follow-up here is sort of builds on Samantha Joe's question, which is that, economists overwhelmingly agree that unemployment benefits do disincentivize people to seek work, but at the same time, it's obvious that Florida's are too low. So when we talk about what the right number is, doesn't this highlight a bigger issue in our economy, that the people on the lower end of the wage scale aren't getting paid enough money? And the idea being that if you're adding $600 a week to unemployment benefits to get at $875, and you're disincentivizing, for example, healthcare workers from going to work at a time when we need them the most, which was one of the reasons that Rick Scott and the other three senators mentioned that they had a problem with the CARES Act before it came out of the Senate, doesn't this highlight a bigger issue that we're just not paying people enough money?
Yes, we should raise the minimum wage. The Congress hasn't raised the minimum wage for well over 10 years, although the House of Representatives voted this past year to raise the wage to $15 per hour over the next few years. But a public health crisis, an economic emergency like this, demonstrates I think the poor public policy at the state level when it comes to wages and when it comes to health care. We're one of just about a dozen of states that has not expanded Medicaid. That means we have about 800,000 of our neighbors who do not have access to affordable quality care. And it means that we are sending billions and billions of our tax dollars up to Washington, and they sit there and they're spread out to other states. Those could be dollars right now that could be helping our hospitals, helping ensure that all of our neighbors have access to treatment that they need. Yes, we've covered through the emergency aid packages COVID testing. The administration rightfully said they're going to cover treatment, but that is no substitute for broad-based health coverage that is there when you need it, especially in times of emergency. Charlie?
Yeah, listen, Evan, I couldn't agree more with Representative Castor. I mean, Kathy gets this and understands it very, very well. And what we're really talking about here is an income inequality problem in the United States of America. I mean, the continued persecution, if you will, of the poor is outrageous. And the fact that we can't raise the minimum wage all across this country to at least $15 an hour is embarrassing. We're the richest country in the world. I mean, we're the richest country in the history of the world. What's wrong with us? I mean, we have to have greater compassion and empathy, especially as I cited earlier from the book of Matthew. How you treat the least among us says a lot about who we are as a people, as a nation. And I know we're a compassionate nation. I know that we're good people. But sometimes we get people in office that don't share the same compassion that the people of the country or the state of Florida do. And it's a real disconnect. And we need to get right with this. And again, as Kathy indicated, not accepting Medicaid expansion is unconscionable. I mean, what kind of person is it that doesn't want to provide health care for the poor in our state and our country? I mean, that's just so appalling to me. I can't even articulate it appropriately. It's unconscionable. This is an issue of fundamental fairness and simply doing what's right. And as I said earlier also, to me, this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with Republicans versus Democrats. This has nothing to do with right versus left. It is exactly on point, a matter of right versus wrong. And not helping people, particularly in a time of need that we're experiencing this crisis, is dead wrong.
All right, thank you all so much. Up next, we have a question from John Hill with the Tampa Bay Times. John, you are now unmuted.
Thank you very much, and thank you for doing the call. My question is about the federal benefits. With all the delays that so many people are having getting into the system, is the clock running on these benefits? Are there any end points or end times after which you can't receive these? So are some people facing getting maybe 2 months or 3 months as opposed to either the 4 additional months of unemployment?
I believe that there is the end of July cutoff, but the Congress is going to come back and provide additional aid. Michelle, can you confirm that there is a hard and fast deadline in July, and with no wiggle room for states and our neighbors who need to enter the system and aren't able to because of inadequate systems?
Yeah, the deadline is July 31. However, the start date is whenever Florida signed its agreement with the Department of Labor. So if somebody's eligible for the $600 this week, regardless of when they actually get approved, they should get the money dating back to this week.
So we're going to have to fix the July date, likely, if this economic emergency tied to COVID continues. And I know Charlie would agree with that, right?
I 100%, of course,
yeah.
Kathy. And, that's just a matter of having a good heart and a good soul and understanding what the right thing is to do. And, as I've said to a lot of people, as we continue to move along in Congress with these different stimulus bills, it's been historic already what we've done in this crisis. And I'm very pleased that the Congress is responding in such a responsible fashion. And I know that's only going to continue, Kathy, because our speaker is extraordinary and she is leading us incredibly well and will only continue to do so.
All right, wonderful. So we are going to ask our last question now, which is written from Blaze Gainey with WFSU. Blaze says, applying is one problem. Paper applications are great, but processing applications isn't quick. How can that be sped up to help people get approved and money into their hands quickly?
Well, with the state of Florida has to have an all hands on deck moment, and the Congress is trying to speed that money back home into the pockets of our neighbors who need it. But unless there's a functional system here at the state level, that's not going to come in time. So it really is an emergency situation where the governor has got to use his emergency powers to bring all forces to bear to help lift our neighbors up, fix that system, extend the number of weeks, increase the benefit amount, but most importantly, right now, right at the here and now, fix the system, get it up and running. And fortunately, Governor Christ has had some friendly advice for him and has led the effort to create a more efficient app where folks don't have to rely on those paper applications or get up at 3 a.m. in the morning to try to get online. Congressman Chris?
Yeah, no, thank you, Kathy, very much. And I couldn't agree more. I think that, we're in a situation where everybody needs to come together to face this crisis and offer the most humanitarian support and service imaginable. This is a novel situation. This is a novel virus that we're facing that is creating this economic havoc across the country. And so I just want to thank you, Kathy and Michelle, for your, number one, Kathy, for your good heart and your good spirit. You're like a sister to me, and you know that.
I know.
And I think the world of you and your family. But you know, in times like these, you really have the opportunity to get these issues crystallized, if you will. And I think this crisis has brought into clear focus what we as a nation are dealing with overall. You know, they say when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and we're going. And we just need to dedicate ourselves to continue to do so, to do what's right, to fight for the people, to protect their health, safety, and welfare in this extraordinary situation. And I have faith that we will do that. Thank God for it.
All right. Thank you all sorry, Congresswoman Castor.
I just wanted to thank my brother in service, Charlie Crist. It really is a privilege to work with you. You were there when the BP oil blowout devastated our economy for a long time. You were there for those small business owners. You were there for them again. And I couldn't have a better partner working on behalf of the folks in the Tampa Bay area. And to Michelle, thank you for bringing your expertise. I trust that you're available for any follow-up questions on a lot of the technicalities and comparisons of Florida to other states.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me on.
And if I could, Kathy, I want to thank the members of the press that are on the call today. You know, to have almost 40 people tune into this call is extraordinary. And I just think that, you know, protecting the First Amendment is so darn important. And at this time, probably more than any other time, it's important that we continue to have a free press, whether it's electronic or print or internet based. And my heart goes out to the print press right now. And one of the things I want to try to do is get more resources for them going through this difficult time. I mean, I was able to get the Tampa Bay Times today, but I can only pick it up in print on Wednesday and Sunday now. And it breaks my heart.
Yep, me too.
Now, yeah, right. And so now more than ever, to get fair, accurate, honest, and investigative reporting on what's going on in America and who's doing what and who isn't, I can't think of a more important time to support the First Amendment and freedom of speech.
And Charlie, I really appreciate you raising that directly with the Speaker of the House, because the people are relying on current news, and what I can't imagine our community without a newspaper. We just can't go there. Can't go there.
That's right.
But thank you. Yes, thanks to all of the journalists that are helping us get the word out.
Yeah, you're all public servants too. And, you know, many times people like Kathy and myself are referred to as politicians. It kind of, you know, I don't receive it terribly favorably. And I always try to remind people, well, we're supposed to be public servants. We're supposed to serve you. You are the boss. You know, you pay us. I'm grateful. And we want to do everything we can to deliver for you. And I'll leave it at that. And thank you all again for being on the call.
Thank you all so much for joining us. That wraps up today's call. And as Congresswoman Castor said, Michelle, Congressman Crist, and Congressman Castor will be available to answer any questions. So please follow up with me if you want me to bring those questions over. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.